Hey there, Locked On Astros Nation. This is Htown Wheelhouse, and once again, we're going to round out the final 11 rounds because I was going to go to round 10, and I'm going to bring back our friend Jeff because he's going to talk to us about why that 11th round pick is so important. We hope that you're enjoying our deep dive into the draft this year as we try to give you all the best information. Again, this is going to be a great show. Sit back and enjoy and get to know these prospects and future Astros.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Heisman and Brett Htown Wheelhouse Chansey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros. We're your daily Astros podcast. I'm Htown Wheelhouse. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Htown Wheelhouse. You can find me at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find the show at Locked On Astros on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Remember, we're always positive, always Stros. And my co-host tonight is Jeff. Jeff, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on my Twitter at JeffMLBDraft, which, might be a bit of a giveaway, what I like to talk about. But most time, you'll find most of my work at Locked On Guardians. I almost slipped. You can go check out the subscribe, all the ways you subscribe to Locked On Astros. And if you ever want to see my draft writing, I used to, before the Locked On job, I was the lead MLB draft and prospect analyst at Scouting 24/7. Unfortunately, I don't have an editor anymore, so it is always a bit. I always give that warning, but I do some work over at MLBDraftNow.blogspot.com. It has like my top 51 for this year's draft. I'm a little bit different. Also has my last mock. I ended up with 5 picks right for anyone who's keeping score at home.
No, that's nice. I don't know that I would have got any of the picks right. This is definitely something that I'm learning more and more about each day. So I tap into guys like you. I tap into guys like Astros Future, like Lindsey Crosby. I mean, all you guys the time and effort it takes to find out about these guys. But if you're passionate about it, and like I said before, please go check out his channel. He does some great things with the Guardians. I mean, he's got our old friend Miles Stroll over there that he gets to talk about. I know he's had kind of a rough year, but Jose Ramirez, McKenzie. I mean, you've got some bright spots over there in Cleveland. But let's go ahead and get started. Let's get rolling with this round 7 pick. AJ Blueball, the 223rd pick of this draft. Tell me about this kid because I don't really know much about him. I know if I look through and I look at the different years and what he did, and I know he was the Horizon League Relief Pitcher of the Year for 2 consecutive seasons. He was 3-3, 3.25 ERA and 16 appearances. What do you like most about this kid?
Well, kind of just a fun random fact. I live in Wisconsin, and he went to the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is the only Division I baseball program in the state. The Badgers don't have baseball. So this is the only Division I program in the state of Wisconsin. And they don't necessarily put someone in every year, but every few years. But pitching wise, the last 2 years, he's been excellent. He looks the part of, kind of a back end starter. Maybe that's not as exciting, but I think if you get a back end starter in the 7th round, you've done a fantastic job. He's faced lesser competition. I feel like there was a little bit of a ding on him this year as he moved from the bullpen to the starting role because he wasn't missing quite as many bats. Now, there are those who think, okay, we'll put him back in the pen. The one nice thing was as he moved into the starting role, he actually walked a lot less hitters. So he was a little more consistent this year. And the question is, okay, so that's, again, small school guy. We talked about this a little bit in the last part. Just make him a starter and see if he can be a little more consistent. Because he was a starter for reliever the first 2 years, and even a reliever part of this year. Only half of his games were starts. So you're kind of betting on him being able to be a starter when you grab him here, that he's got the pitch mix to naturally be a starter. He was just kind of in that relief role because sometimes college baseball is weird. He was their best pitcher. He was their Saturday starter, Riley, I can't remember his last name. Like a left-handed pitcher who might get drafted next year was their Friday starter the last 2 years. And Yeah, he got kind of pushed back into that relief role, and this year he got his opportunity and looked good, and he was, clearly the best Horizon League prospect. I'm saying that now. Like, was there someone I'm forgetting? It was not. It was a bit of a down year. Wright State normally has like a few guys that go. They only had one guy this year. Uh, but when you look at what was there, anyone who follows this in depth was familiar with him, which is not something you typically say for University of Wisconsin Milwaukee pitcher. He said not the most exciting profile, but profiles as kind of maybe a swing guy, chance for a starter, and you're just kind of betting on development. I think with him, a lot of what I kind of said with why am I with DeVos, but with Blue Ball, you got better overall stuff. I think a better
Okay.
chance to stick is that starter role, but you're kind of betting on that same thing that, okay, he's finally going to be a starter. He's going to be in a real, a pro weight room. He's going to be getting some advanced coaching. He's going to focus on one thing. Maybe they gain more. I would bet on him having a better chance at a starter. I actually like him more than DeVos, just because I think he has a better chance to start. And I think, the general view on him, there was a consensus that like he was going to go maybe probably right around here. But most
Mm-hmm.
people think starter first, and you give him every chance to start. And if it doesn't work, maybe his stuff will play up a little better in the pen.
Well, one of the things I think about with all this is the way baseball reduced the amount of minor league players or minor league teams. Reducing some of the stops along the way, and so when you have some of these guys that maybe need a little bit more development than the others, I wonder in the back of my mind, because I don't fully understand the minor league system and really the ins and the outs of it. Although it's not tough if you look into it. It's not necessarily rocket science, but you wonder how pitchers that need more development, how that will affect them adversely in the long run, or if it now is that's just how things are. So it will really have a zero sum effect on them. But with a kid like this that does show promise, and again, and I keep mentioning these names because I've interviewed them within the last 6 to 8 months, these minor league pitchers that have come from Division II schools, that have pitched in Division III, that have pitched all over or gone through adversity, Jeff. A lot of times it seems like those guys seem to do really well. Rather than, you have your guys like a Garrett Cole who gets drafted and says, no, I'm going to pitch my senior year and goes #1 overall. You have those picks, right? But you also have these guys that have to grind, that go up and down, or they change roles and they really refine who they are. And if they get plugged in the right system, it sounds like a kid like this that does have a few more tools than DeVos. Maybe you see him leapfrog one of these top guys and make it up before they do. Or in his progress, you see him progress efficiently along the way with the Astros. So, with that being said, let's look at the number 8 round pick at Tyler. Is it Guilfoyle?
Yes.
Okay, Tyler Guilfoyle, the 8th round pick, number 253, Kentucky. There's my Kentucky guy. I'm not even a Kentucky. I don't know why I said that. Kentucky junior pitcher. He was named first team All American by Baseball All America, which is huge. So that was pretty cool. He previously was named first team All American by the NCBWA in Perfect Game. So this was also by Baseball America. So high praise from national scouts or national writers, people who follow this game. He had turned in arguably the best season in the history of Kentucky reliever. He had a 1.59 ERA, 6 saves, 51 innings, striking out 14 batters per 9 innings, holding opposing hitters to 156 batting average. He had a microscopic 1.34 ERA, 40.1 Southeastern Conference innings. That's SEC. That's the SEC that has a lot of really solid baseball going on there. What do you like about Tyler Guilfoyle? I think this kid seems like he's going to be a superstar. What do you think?
Him is, he doesn't qualify for some things because he's a reliever and he pitched 51 innings. But if you look at that 14.12, if he had qualified in terms of like strikeouts per 9, that would be the highest mark in the country. Cooper Sherpe is second at 14.02, and Pat Pridgeon from FIU, who I believe also got drafted this past weekend, 14.07. And then I know what the natural thought is. Okay, he misses a ton of bats. I bet he's wild. He walks guys. Walks per 9 was 3. And
Wow.
this is a guy who was at Libscomb. Can I say it right? Lipscomb.
There you go.
Lipscomb for the past previous 3 years. This is a first year in the SEC, goes from the Atlantic Sun to the SEC, and his walk rate improves, and he throws the
Wow.
most innings he's ever thrown. His previous high for innings was 38, and he was at 51. He was a high use reliever. We talk about like only 3 walks per 9. How about his hit per 9 was 4.76? Like that's almost unheard of. Guys in the SEC, which is, no matter how you feel about the SEC. I know some people just hate the SEC, but when it comes to baseball, it's the SEC, the ACC, and then I have to get to about the floor when we start talking about like Pac-12, Big 12, like those two.
Wow.
I mean, Big 12 is probably just a little bit off the table. Like those two are here, just because the Big 12 is so top heavy. It's like the SEC top to bottom. There's always like everyone's got at least 2 to 3 interesting guys because you go there because you're going to get seen. And like if you're gonna go to a lesser program, you're still gonna get seen in the lesser program because everyone's gonna see you when you're facing the big programs. So like Alabama is a weak program there, but there were many, myself included, who argued the top college pitcher in this class was an Alabama pitcher. So, but yeah, he went in there and dominated, which to me is always an important thing to see, and I like seeing that because I feel like when you step it to a higher level and you excel, that's a positive sign. Like it is hard to jump into that level and just go. And I talked about Chandler Simpson on, I think, in the previous show. That was one of the reasons I loved him at Georgia Tech, was like he went from JUCO and then stepped into the starting shortstop role and ran with it. He has 80 grade speed, so he really ran with it. But here it's like you want to talk about the top performing closers in the country. He got overshadowed because he's in the SEC, and Ben Joyce, right, is the Tennessee closer who hit.
He's the guy that gets all the pub, right?
Yeah. And then Andrew Walters at Miami had an even lower ERA, but didn't have as good of a strikeout rate. So it was a pretty good relief. And then Landon Sims at I don't want to say the wrong Mississippi, so I'm just gonna say a Mississippi school. I've been confused him in my head, and I'm not walking into that. Not walking into that buzzsaw. So like he was like the big name closer entering the year who was gonna maybe start. Maybe won't, but I mean, he ended up going as a comp round pick. So you had a pretty good relief corps class. So he got overlooked to a degree. And I know you said he got all those awards, but there was a lot of names to look at. And even in the SEC,
True.
He said he had, Joyce was great. Don't get me wrong, but Joyce was also very strictly watched. Tony Vitelli did a great job monitoring him. And not to say that anything wrong happened with Guilfoyle going 51 innings. He's worked in the high 30s multiple times, but he was also just used a lot more. So you have more data there.
Yeah. And the thing that I'm kind of getting at is you are looking for the one that stands out. You don't want the player that just looks like all the others. Kind of like when you want to look for that special engagement ring or that anniversary band or that fine jewelry that you're looking for that special someone in your life. And if that's the case, you need to go to BlueNile.com. When you don't have JeffMLBDraft to help you out with the draft, go to BlueNile.com, because while he may be able to give you the 50 grade on this kid over here, I don't know if I'd go to Jeff for the jewelry aspect, because he would probably send you to BlueNile.com as well. The great thing about Blue Nile is they will hit you at every price point. It doesn't matter what price you're coming at. You basically are going to tell them how much you can spend. You tell them what you're looking for, and they will be there for you. They have bench jewelers that are there 24/7 to help you choose the clarity, the size, the shape, the style, whatever you want to make that moment sparkle, to make this moment become something legendary. Expert advice 24/7, 30-day returns if you want it. If for some reason it's not perfect, no problem, 100% satisfaction guaranteed, shop stress-free. And when they ship it to you, they ship to your house. It ships in a discreet package, so those that get it don't know what it is. It doesn't give it away. It's insured. And right now, they're doing a special to make the moment sparkle at BlueNile.com. It's called the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale. You will save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces, kind of like the Rangers did with Harold Kumar, I almost said Harold Kumar, with Kumar Rocker, with the 3rd overall pick. That was
I like Harold and
Kumar
slip. More than I like Kumar Rocker. Not step on your feet there, but
so if you want to save money like the Rangers did and pay under slot, then you get 25% off that engagement ring settings. go to BlueNile.com today. They are the place that make the dreams come true. That was probably the best live read in my 800 plus episodes on this show. That was great. I said
I've
Harold
had
and Kumar. Who would have thunk I would ever use those two names on this show?
things that pop up when you're doing that. I mean, I did an ad read because I did so many. I was doing all the draft content. And it was like 4 a.m. and I was tired. And I sat and I ate a Built Bar for one of my ad reads. I'm just like, see, look at the wrapper. Look what it looks like. I'm gonna do like
Right.
a QVC of this product here.
Exactly. All right. So with that, let's get into round 9, 10, and 11.
Mm-hmm.
And round 9 was Brett Gillis out of Portland, a right-handed pitcher. And I got this from Jimmy over at Astros Future. He had a few like synopsis breakdowns because I really couldn't find much on these later round guys. Gillis is well-built pitcher, 6'2", 215. The right-hander put together a dominant senior season, posting a 2.24 ERA with 115 strikeouts in 84.1 innings. He also performed well on the West Coast Summer League. What else can you tell us about Brett Gillis, right-handed pitcher out of Portland?
So he's also an infielder. He was a two-way guy a lot of times at there. Let's see, this past year he had 54 at bats, not as many in 2020, 2019, 31, but he ended up with 89 career at bats. So there were games where if he wasn't pitching, he was playing on the infield. Now, I don't know specifically where on the infield. I didn't dig deep enough, but they thought enough about him. And yeah, the numbers aren't great as a hitter, but that means some of his focus was not on pitching. And he pitched very well at a smaller conference, but honestly, and he, okay, so I'm going to use, some people view senior sign as a dirty word. So it can be, but at the same time, again, my own background with the Guardians, and that's where I started covering the draft. That's where I mean, back in the day, I've been doing this 14 years now. When I first started out, I would write up every single Guardians draft pick back when there were 50 rounds. So I would sit there and write up and find something on all of them. And one of those senior signs for 10K was Joey Wendell. Or if you want to talk about the Dodgers, one of their senior signs, they didn't even go 10K. They gave bottom of the bucket. Tony Gonsolin got $2,500, one of the lowest bonuses I've ever seen for a top 10 round guy. So senior sign, yeah, most of them don't turn into the best thing, but don't discount them either. Like I would argue Joey Wendell should have been second in the Rookie of the Year. The year I think that was Ohtani's year, and then maybe it was a New York Yankee who beat him, and I was like, I'll leave that. It was just classic, like big me, like the whatever. He was a red. He didn't get the
thing right, and that really narrative is it seems like on all levels. I think it even goes down to when these kids are playing select. I have a friend of mine who actually coached Mark Canha and Jason Castro on the same select team. And he told me Castro could hit the hell out of the ball. Like he was an amazing hitter. He said, I don't know over the years what's happened to his bat, but when he was moving up and, he was playing in age groups above his, he was absolutely wrecking pitching. He's always been a dynamic catcher. So Mark Canha was out of this world good. But, these players and these guys, as they move up, their tools don't always translate. Yeah. And maybe sometimes they find different places on the field. Lance McCullers loves hitting, misses hitting, was a very good hitter in high school. Was the Gatorade Player of the Year there in Florida, and now he's of course he's injured right now. He's come back from injury, but when he's not injured, he's one of the most dominating pitchers in the major leagues.
And for me, I look at Gillis, and if you're going to take a senior sign, he's probably going to get something like $10,000. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, the idea is baseball's weird. We have a draft pool. And some of the things I talk about is like you can trade the comp picks, but you can't trade the other picks. So like what the Rangers did, for instance, as you talked about with them, by signing someone way under slot, they traded down. So instead of getting one of the top 5 guys, they got Kumar Rocker, who is probably in most places, teens or later. I had him at 40 because I didn't get to see his medicals. But Brock Porter was widely viewed as a top 20 talent. So they got 2 guys who were kind of top 20 instead of one guy who was top 5. So when you do that, you're saving that money. And Houston had a pretty straightforward draft. Melton might cost a little bit more, but they were saving that money for who they got in the 11th round. Like that person, not to get Brian Clifford, we'll get to him.
Right.
That's the guy they're saving money for. One could argue he's the third highest rated player in this class by most scouting services, and they needed needed a little bit more, or maybe if they get there, I think in the 17th round when they took Isaiah Jackson or Isaiah, I think it's Jackson. He's another guy who's going to
Yeah,
cost more
Isaiah
than the
Jackson.
slot there.
And you know what's
So
funny is both of
I
those
would,
players
yeah,
ruined my narrative. I basically said the Astros actually I'm correct. 1 through 10, they stayed away from high school players. After that, they got some high school players, but they stayed away from high school pitchers. I know that for sure. But
yeah. So
but
I think you take a guy like him. The one thing you'd say, and what I like about this is they went for a guy who was a top performer, and you've got a chance for more growth in the fact that he was that two-way guy.
mm,
So on top of the fact that he had a stellar senior year as the Friday starter at a small school, he was also a two-way guy. You're also going to get the savings. So if you're going to go for savings, I'd much rather get the performer than the toolsy guy who's been a disappointment. That's just my personal view.
so don't get it wrong. Jeff's not saying he's the next Shohei Ohtani. He's just saying that he has the ability to go 2 ways on the field. So round 10, Zach Cole, outfielder out of Ball State. The lefty swinging Cole had a breakout junior season, slashing 361, 449, 727 with 10 doubles, 9 triples, 13 home runs, 47 RBI in 55 games. The outfielder is listed at 6'2", 190. Big body kid, big bat. I mean, Ball State, what do you think about Zach Cole round 10?
Ball State is a really good program. Back when I was in Ohio, I used to Wisconsin, or not Wisconsin. Now I'm in Wisconsin. When I was in Ohio, Kent State was my home field. I was there every Friday. I got to see Eric Lauer. It's probably the biggest name who was there at the time. And Ball State, big rival. And Ball State was also had they had all the analytical equipment up. Like this is a team that is a firm believer. Like there was always a computer up getting data the whole time. Cole didn't play at all really those first 2 years. He had a grand total of 38 at bats. So he was kind of buried. This was his real first chance to kind of go out there and do things. There is a strikeout to walk imbalance. Like that's the concern when you're looking at a more than 2-to-1 strikeout to walk
Okay.
ratio. He did hit for power. You mentioned the 13 home runs. He also had 10 doubles and 9 triples. So, runs pretty well. So he ended up having quick math, 32 extra base hits.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, there's some tools there. I don't know if he's more than a backup type. He's probably, he's not a senior sign, but he wouldn't be because he's just a straight junior from Ozark, Missouri. But he's got a little bit of speed, got a little bit of pop, and you're probably still getting him under slot there. I bet he is a bit of a saver for them, which then helps with some of the other ones. But interesting from the perspective that he said he didn't play at all. And then he finally got an opportunity and he stepped in and played very well. And the thing that I don't have that I'm guaranteed Houston has is, again, this is Ball State does the analytics. They have the advanced data. Houston probably got the data from them. There might be something in there they like that you and I don't have.
True.
But
True.
I'm betting there's more to this than meets that. Because again, it's not he has 100% a draftable profile. I'm not saying that, but I'm betting if he gets full slot here, then there is something in that data they really liked that you and I don't know about right now.
Well, you mentioned betting, and every time you say that word, it triggers me because Eric always uses that word to lead us into a live read. But since you've said it, and I think it's a great place to pause before we talk about this 11th round pick, Ryan Clifford, betonline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check out all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events and the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news in every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, even golf. BetOnline.net continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. Head to BetOnline.net today and use your mobile device and learn more about the action happening wherever it's going on. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, Jeff, let's talk about this kid. You said I was going to go through round 10, and you said you might want to go through round 11 before we started recording this. And so I'm trusting you, Kimosabi. I'm trusting you on this. I've come to learn from the master, Ryan Clifford, and I'll give you what I have on him out of Crossroads High School. Clifford is sweet swinging left-handed outfield prospect. Sweet swinging left-handed prospect. Sounds like someone I know on the team right now. with an advanced approach and power at the plate. Still sounds like a guy I know right now. He goes by, we call him the king around here, King Tuck. He was ranked the number 92 prospect by MLB and will need a strong bonus to sign. Some scouts refer to him as a Seth Beer with athleticism, according to MLB.com. Holy crap. Is this our diamond in the rough? Is this the guy? Do the Astros get this guy signed? Is he as good as they think he's going to be?
So I think it's, I think they get him signed. The 11th round. So just again, for people who aren't as familiar with the draft, 11th rounders typically sign because that is where you go and it's the guy you've carried through, or the team spent all last night being, they have, when they draft a guy, they know how much it's going to cost. So they know how much they have left and they just start cold calling agents. We have this much left. Will you take it? No, hang up, call the next kid. We have this much left. Will you take it? And they just keep doing this. And it is interesting because you look at that MLB thing and it talks about the Seth Beer with better athleticism, but they call him a fringy runner. If I go over to perfect game, his 60-yard time is a 6.71. That's 90th percentile.
Okay.
So there's like his 10-yard split at 154. That's 93rd percentile. His outfield arm, 97th percentile. His fastball, well, this might be outdated stuff there because this is some younger, some of the numbers here aren't as expressed, but a 6.71 is still a decent 60. I'm not saying he's a great athlete, but he can move, left field or right field. I know he played some first base, but I think he'll be there. And it's one of those guys, if you start making a list, like who has the prettiest swings in this draft, he makes the top 5. And, when you're talking about pretty swings, that's what everyone talked about with Tucker back when he was the draft. Yeah. It's like it was the prettiest swing anyone would ever talk about. There's been, I hadn't really until I saw the MLB one, seen the beer comp. There had been some Yelich labeling with him at points. And honestly, it's like when I was reading through the profile and looking at the video and watching things, I think you're looking at a chance for above average hit and power, maybe plus at both areas. Like he could be a plus hit plus power. I know that is a little more aggressive than what MLB is saying, but I think he's a corner outfielder with just really good chance to be successful across the board with everything we've seen with him. And I think they found a strong value at this point in the draft, and he knows how to. He said, we talked about it in the draft earlier. There are guys who are pitchers and throwers. Well,
right.
Sometimes there's athletes and there's hitters, and he's a hitter. Like he has a very good approach. And yeah, I think he's going to be fine in the outfield. I think he's going to hit well. And I think there's enough power behind it that he should be an above average bat. So to me, that's a great value at even if they gotten him in the 3rd round, which is kind of where he was more graded out. Like that's a solid profile hitter.
So of these picks, and this is kind of, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here to wrap up the show, but of these 11 picks, are there 2 or 3 guys that you say like really like your top 3 guys out of these first 11 picks? Who would you say are your guys that maybe have the most promise? Let's go with that.
Most promise. Because the top 3 would end up being, they drafted 3 guys from my big board. So that would be Gilbert, Melton, and Nabrowski. But if you're talking promise in terms of ceiling, I still think Gilbert. Because again, I'm just very, very high.
I agree with that.
I might put Clifford 2, just in terms of like, if everyone hits their 90th percentile outcomes, let's say, not the top, but their most, like he's a decent defender, plus hit, plus power. And then I would, just looking over the list in this group, I'd probably still go Milton 3rd, but it's a little bit tighter there just because he's going to be somewhat similar in many regards to what I talked about with Clifford, but I think Clifford just has, it's a little bit easier for him. I think he just does everything a little bit easier. So Melton is more of like the hard work guy. I think he's, a solid player. There's always just the difference between the high school kid and the guy who's already a senior too, where it's like there's a better chance of hitting a 90th percentile outcome. Whereas with Melton, you always have to be like, well, he was older. He was, he played an exceptional lineup. There's a lot of reasons that could hold him back a little bit more, but he would be 2, and then Melton still 3rd. Just because I think he's a good chance to be at least I think it's going to be hard for him to at least not be a quad A type of guy.
No, and I think the Astros right now have a lot of those guys. I mean, and I'm not going to name names because I've met a lot of them, spoken with them personally, and on record and off record, and they've got a lot of guys who are they're just right there. I mean, like some of them, they're going to perform phenomenally at that AAA level. They're just not going to be able to take that next step. I mean, I've had former students of mine that got drafted, made it, or one of the top draft picks. I don't know how far you go back in your draft, but there's a kid, one of my former students, Jared Wells, is a great pitcher out of West Columbia. Ended up getting picked up in
With the
2006.
White
He
Sox for
was
a time.
well, he in 2006 he was the Padres minor league pitcher of the year. He actually lived with Clay Hensley, who is a friend of the show, who has come on, and Clay and him know each other personally. But I remember him telling me, and the reason why I mention it is because he told me once he got to AAA as a pitcher, it was like the strike zone was like a pinhole, and he said it was so difficult. He said if I was a left-handed pitcher, I would be up in no time. Like it would have been, almost automatic because he had the velocity, he had the command. It was just he was squeezed because there were so many people in front of him. So he played a few games. He ended up dealing with some injuries. He ended up actually playing with the Skeeters before they became the Space Cowboys in their independent league. He was in the Rockies organization a year or two. He was with the Astros for about a season, but then he kind of hung it up. He now runs a baseball team. But these guys, you never know. Some of these guys are highly touted. They'll never turn into anything. Jonathan Singleton.
I just talked about him this past week. He's
Yeah, I mean,
he's
is he
playing
actually
well in
progressing?
AAA.
No, and that's a guy that you hope ends up making it and having success. But for what you
Yeah, he's.
expected,
I guess
out of him,
he's not playing well in AAA, but he must be near the top in a few categories. Where I was
Okay,
talking about the International League, and his name was popping
interesting.
up. So I literally last week was telling people about the John Singleton experience on Locked On Guardians, but I thought it just must have been walks and home runs. He still,
Now,
still
hey,
can't.
there is a guy that we do have to talk about before we like finalize this show. Is JaMarr Diaz? This kid is turning heads. Are you upset that the Indians let him go?
I am
I mean,
not like
sorry, the Guardians let him go. My bad.
here's like my general view. Like I think I thought he could always hit. Like I don't know about catcher, but I thought like he's a potential first baseman, DH. And the Guardians are in such a bad roster crunch right now. Like
Mm,
Joey Cantillo, for instance, was not put on the 40 man, and he was, in my opinion, I think he was the number 2 piece in that Clevenger deal. He was hurt last year. I don't know if it's still the case, but for the first 3 months of the year, he had the lowest hard hit percentage of anyone in double or triple A, and they didn't add him. Like they're in such a crunch. There was a 0% chance they add Diaz to that roster,
mm.
and he would have been exposed in the Rule 5, which we all expected to happen. It didn't, but like you have that expectation. So to them, like the logic was, hey, we have a decent chance of losing him. Might as well trade him. And this team had no options in center field. Like we have watched some truly bad center fielders in Cleveland. And no matter what you want to say about Miles, like defense is never a question. And since he got here, like he became really close with Jose very quickly. Like those two are buddies. They took a break from his contract negotiations, Miles, to finish up Jose's, and like they knew it because they're such good friends. So, I mean, I talk in the show. It's like he might have actually helped us keep Jose to a degree because they knew like one of his two best friends in Cleveland is locked up as well. So,
Wow.
Diaz is great. Very skeptical about if he can catch. I think he can hit. I think he could be a major leaguer with a bat, but we're going to lose him, if they're going to Rule
Anyways,
5 anyways. And then what Miles Straw meant to, he made Cleveland even more fun for Jose. And you don't know, how much something like that helps push a guy over. Like he wanted to stay here, but did Miles help that? Potentially. So I have no
oh, I think
problems.
so. Miles Straw. I know when he was traded, like all of Houston was shocked. So, and some people I know that are close to him were like, "What?" they thought it was a joke. And I remember I sent one of them one of the news flashes, and they were like, is this an April Fool's joke? It's not even April. And I was like, no, this just happened. And this was someone who is basically related to him, and they didn't even know. And it was a shock to everybody.
It was like the great thing earlier in the year. And I think, this is Houston fans in particular might appreciate this. Like when they went to New York and there were some really rowdy fans and someone like hit Jose with something, like Miles tried to get into the stands to like defend his teammates and stuff like that.
We saw
far.
that. That was a big, and I remember that. Miles Straw's a good kid. He is a Florida kid. That's my home state. I'm not a native Texan, and that pains me to say that every time I say it. I'm jealous of my own kids that were born here, but it's just, it is an honor. I think. Anyways, gosh, I digress. I'll go into some.
I'm just saying, I got no regrets. Even if Diaz comes up and is a really strong bat, we needed a stabilizing force, and he was that both as a player, as a defender, and as a clubhouse personality.
Well, good deal. Well, hey, man, as a draft analyst and as a friend and as a fellow podcast host, I think you are our Miles Straw today. You are our MVP, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Tell the people one more time where they can find you.
The Twitter is relatively easy. JeffMLBDraft. That's what I talked about today. And then I do spend a lot of time on the draft. Some of the Guardians fans like it, some not so much, but it is something that, I was a lead draft analyst. It's what got me my first ever paying gig over at Scout and then 24/7. I also did prospect work, but the draft has always been like first and foremost in my heart. So I do a lot of that. So if you subscribe to Locked On Guardians YouTube, yes, there is a lot of Guardians chatter, but you also catch quite a bit of draft chatter throughout the year as well. And I always mark it in the episodes. So, you can always see if it's the one you want, you'll know.
There you go. And if you're still a Miles Straw fan, he'll probably be talking about Miles Straw and Jose Ramirez and some of the great players they have there. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us. Thank you for helping us be more educated on this draft thing, because it is a beast. I mean, oh my gosh, like to cover it the way you do, like it would go crazy. And you cover a major league team. That's impressive. Well, so hey, for myself, Eric the Man Heisman, who's not here, and all of us at Locked On Astros Nation, we want to thank y'all for tuning back in. And as always, go Stros. And remember, Wednesday night, we've got a preview of the Yankees Astros doubleheader. And I've got a special guest, super fan, that Astros girl is going to be my co-host. It'll be fun. So come hang out. Bye.